Yo, it's Guido coming at you with the Tactics Talk. Recently, we talked about a couple things. Number one is somebody thanked me for having a replay on Outpost, said they hadn't seen a lot of replays on it. So here we go with another replay. The other thing we discussed because of the replay on that particular map, or this particular map, was that we discussed the middle part, or going up into the middle. It was Pilgrim, I believe. He went up to the ramp, kind of hung out there for a while and left. Let's talk about taking the middle of this up here in the castle area, which can be very powerful position. You got a couple things against it potentially. If you've got artillery, that can be a little bit difficult to work in there because it is fairly exposed. There's a lot of openings. There's some interesting altitudes on some of the terrain in there, which will cause you to get a little too high and get shot as well. So we'll talk about it. But the biggest problem with it, obviously, is the approach and getting into the middle, because it really is something of a crapshoot. Now, I'm top tier in my Udes 1516. And I know that the 1516 got some really good gun depression. You got to work with the hydraulics a little bit, so it's a little bit wonky. But this position up here is really nice for shooting in a couple directions. It's mostly good for shooting to the north here into the heavy brawling area. There's only the ramp to shoot across into the southeast right here, and that's a bit exposed. But really nice for controlling either here towards the west or here towards the east or up here into the northwest. Again, though, you got to make the decision early. You need a fairly fast tank. You need the right situation. Say 3 or 4 tanks came up on this ramp with me, and maybe some fast guys are already sitting on their sniper hill waiting for me to do this exact thing. It may not go that good. So you're really selling out here. You can lose a lot of hit points, if not your whole tank, based on the situation. Looking at this, there's nothing special about this setup that makes me think I'm going to make this happen. So I am kind of rolling the dice right here. The faster the better generally is a good way to look at it. But let's see how it works out for me. All right. As I was approaching this and headed up this way, I did say to myself, I hope they don't see anybody. The best case scenario is nobody shows up there, or you get by before they come up and spot you, / you're already up and around the corner. Now, just look how far you've got to get, right? The 121's kind of following me. I don't remember if he comes up here. But I've got to cross this whole area right here, shottable by these guys, and then this whole thing is just open to shots from all the sniperinos down here. Now, I got there pretty quickly. They would have to go straight there and get themselves up on the hill, so there's a bit of the timing thing working for me, which is why I say you really want to be fast. I wouldn't say this thing's super fast, but I do have a turbo on it, so it's a little better than normal. So I'm really kind of trusting that things are going to work out. Be ready to shoot the other guys when they come up. It looks like the PTA kind of does that. I'm going to do a little herky-jerky there, and we get away with it. We only take 1 shot. Ouch, 2 shots. All right, so right off the bat, I've really given up a lot of hit points just to take this position. It's why this position isn't so great in terms of just rolling to it. It's a little bit like mines in that it's nice to have. You don't absolutely have to have it at the beginning to win, but you probably have to retake it at some point. Probably. Not always, but probably. This is much larger than mines, so it's not as crucial, I think, late game to get it here. You could do some fighting with somebody up here in various parts of this map late game and not be completely crushed by the guys up here, but still, it's quite a commanding position. So let's see how we handle this. Also note that the 121 came by without taking any hits because I ate them all. The first guy, right, the point man, he's the one that's going to get shot. All right, so we'll come over here and we'll just keep peeking until maybe we see somebody. We find it. Oh, boy, look at that. All right, that's a pretty good counter right there, which is exactly what that guy is doing. He wants to counter anyone who comes up here. I was spotted, so he knew I was coming up the ramp. I kind of like that as a tier 8 helper guy, helper medium. That's not a bad idea right there. It's a little bit exposed, especially if my team or the Greens, our team, is able to filter through this little village a little bit. But right now, he's not in bad position. So what I really want to do is use some of that hydraulics. The rest of his team are not going to be quite in position yet, so we'll thump him and we'll back out. Man, when I spotted the 4005, I was really hoping that spot was not a 4005 that had stopped, noticed me, and was zooming in. Because I took a little while to take that shot on the T-44, so a little bit lucky there. I see him moving around, and he doesn't seem to be looking at me based on what I can see, so we'll just take a couple shots. Now notice as I get out to the edge of this that my lower hold does get exposed. So you have to be pretty far back here before you're able to go really hold down here. Notice even the AE Phase 1 probably has some shots. Taking a look at other crossfire situations, this ground does fall here and it rises, so anybody who's camping back here is going to have a hard time getting a shot, especially on a low-slung tank like this one, unless I get way up here. But I can go hold down on this little ridge area right about here and take shots back there late game. A similar situation over on the other side. Notice the 121B is sort of looking off into the field, supporting those guys. So we've got a nice little crossfire here by owning this. You do have to watch the counter push, much like mines, the hill on mines, watching the ramp to see if somebody comes up. Again, same thing here. They have a giant group of guys stacked up over here. We've got a BZ, a TNH, another BZ-176. But we have enough sniperinos over here that will probably stop them. But as guns start to fall out of the game, there's less guns in the game, guys start dying, you may run into a counterattack on the hill. So I'm paying as close attention as I can to what's going on the hill. So I kind of got out of there to look around. A little bit dangerous there, exposing myself to some extent. And then we come in here and we find the 4005, who really has not been paying a lot of attention to me. Put a thump on him. And down he goes. All right, that's a good kill. Getting rid of that. That's kind of a lot of RNG, that thing. It's nice that he's not in the game with the capability of just really deleting people. Now, I think I might have had a shot on that AE Phase 1. I'm not sure. And we should take a... Oh boy. All right, kind of all over the place. A little bit worried about the T-44. He lights me. No artillery, which is extremely important for sort of sitting where I am. This is completely exposed to artillery if they had it, so it will change to some extent the way you're going to use this hill. I'm lighting up the T-44 a bit because I'm hoping one of the campers back there may have a shot, but it doesn't look like. Maybe the Udes. And then I think he bails out because I don't proxy light him again. And my team's pushing in, so I'm going to take a look behind them, see if there's anything there. Doesn't look like it. And they're just wrapping around the E100 and the AE Phase 1. Now we'll come over here and see if we can get some shots on the E100. Looks like lit. All right, so we've got the AE Phase 1. We'll shoot him. Go for the track, but it ends up with the kill because he took too many hit points. E100's down low. He dies. We have the VZ over there. And again, we're not being lit by the T-44 who's bailed out of this thing. Take a quick peek. And now I see the BZ-176 making a runner. And there goes his buddy. So I know their turrets may be looking at me, but it doesn't look like they are, so they're running away. We'll just expose a little bit of the tank and kind of back out. There where they go. They're running like sprayed roaches. Looking for the reload. He turns his turret towards me. Another shot into his back. Too bad no fire. And I'm not going to reload fast enough as he gets around that little rock. So the BZs run back, go hold down in a defensive position. And the Rompel Stomp is kind of on at this point. So here's this position. You can tell with the rising terrain, I can go pretty well hold down. There's that hydraulic thing where if you go too fast, you're not in the hydraulics. It can get a little bit goofy when you're poking forward and shooting. I do have a bit of trouble with that with the Udes. So you kind of get set up, go slow. There you go. A little bit of herky-jerky right there. The two BZ-176s, I don't really want to push in on them. And then this guy gives me his lower hole, so we'll just pop one in there. Dispersion does the rest, and it works out for me. Top of the turret's a bit weak. You should get shots on there if you can, especially if you're a little bit higher like that. I can't quite get in there on these guys. So we're turning around. What's going on behind us? I thought about going that way, and then I said, you know what, let's go behind these two fellers here. So the TNH and the BZ-68 are both sitting over here. So we'll come on in. He's fired, so we'll take a shot on him, and we'll back out. And what we're using here, guys, is this little rise, right? This little rise in the ground. I'm going to use that to stay a little bit hold down. Try to protect my lower hole as much as possible. When I'm taking on a casemate like that, I'm only going to peek out enough to shoot him in the edge of the upper casemate right there. I don't want to expose myself any more than I have to his gun. I want to kill him, so I'm going to prioritize that guy, and we're going to bounce off his mantlet because that's exactly where I fired at, like a Muppet. You'll notice that on this tank, on the ISU-152, the right side, as I'm looking at it, his left side is wider because the gun is offset slightly right there. So I'm having a better shot right here looking towards the right, and we'll thump him. Nice roll, but not enough. I was never going to one-shot that guy. And then he dies to the Renagati. There's only 3 tanks. I have some hit points, so at this point, I don't care. I'm just going to go in here and try to get hit points off the BZ-68. If he hits me, he hits me. I'm not going to worry about it, but he dies. Gets his top popped. And we got a T-54, and oh, armor not hit. That's a bummer. We'll push on in. We're at 4,748. We've got 1 kill. I might get 1 more shot in here. I don't even know. Maybe not, but good example of getting up there. I do lose some hit points. If it was a closer game and I needed those hit points, that could be a problem. I think that's probably why not a lot of people will sell out like that early on. You know, sometimes I just like to play the game a little differently, goof around, see how it's going, test things out. Some of the faster tanks might be a little bit easier to get up there. You know, if you take, the thing is the faster tanks are also lighter armored, so things like hold down and bouncing shots off turrets, trying to peek over the edges of that, are not as viable in the faster tanks generally because they have worse armor. So it's kind of a trade-off right there. And I'm being pissy about the cap, telling him to get off the cap, mostly because I want my damage. And of course, the last shot is an armor not penetrated. Bummer. But we get 4,748. We leave 1 of them alive. 733 assists. So there's an example of taking the middle. I think really the more carefully aggressive move is to go to that ramp and try to shoot them as they try to get there, and then figure out a way to get back on the hill later on when you have an opportunity to not take hit points to do so, or potentially flex back to the field or even down to the heavy area. But I did sell out. I was able to get up there. I was able to do some damage, so there's some goodness in that as well. Just a couple of the options for dealing with the middle on whatever this is called. Himmel's Outpost. Himmel's Outpost Dorf. That's all I've got. You guys have a good one. We will see ya.